And so the story actually clocks back to the late 90s. And the family that started the business, it's an Israeli-owned company. And in Israel, for those of you guys that don't know, after high school, you serve in the military. 2 years for women, 3 years for men, mandatory service. They say it's voluntary, but not really. And then after that, roughly 80% of the population in Israel travels somewhere outside of Israel after they get out of the military before they decide to go into university or school or come back and get a job or start a family, to kind of wash the military off them after those 3 years and serving their country and get a chance to earn some income. So what they're looking for is temporary jobs. This is one of the reasons why you find a lot of Israelis all over the world. Because when they leave, they end up going somewhere for temporary jobs to make some money, to go on usually a trip. It's very custom for that culture. The oldest brother of 6, his name's Moti, some of you have met. He ends up coming to the United States, to Houston, Texas. And it's an amazing story because he meets up with a family and he starts working in an ice cream truck. You guys know ice cream trucks? I'm picturing when they're telling me the story kind of like the ice cream truck, the big white one. I don't know if you guys know what I'm talking about, right? And they showed me pictures of the ice cream truck, and it's not an ice cream truck. It's like an ice cream van. And I'm like, so the Middle Eastern driving around in a little van in Houston, Texas, selling kids ice cream. Is that a good idea? And so Moti's driving around, and he starts making a little bit of money. And his plan was to actually save up some money to go on a backpacking trip through South America. But what happens is he ends up making some money. Instead of renting a truck, he buys a truck. Has his own little business going. And then he makes some more money. He gets another truck. He has a little ice cream operation going on. So his younger brother, Isaac, who decided to stay in the military longer and actually moved into flying jets and then was drafted into intelligence, he's trying to convince him to come out here to help him build this ice cream empire so they can take over the world one ice cream at a time. His younger brother, Isaac, was like, no, my life is in the military. I'm happy here. I'm doing what I love to do. I've always wanted to be an intelligence agent. I always wanted to be a secret agent. And it was his whole life's goal. So what happens is he convinces his brother to come, and his brother says, finally, okay, I'm going to take a few weeks off before I have another 3 years of the military. I'll come and visit you. He'd never been to the United States, and he hadn't seen his brother in about 5 years. And he comes to Houston, Texas to visit his brother, and his brother's so excited that when he lands in Houston, what happens is he's so excited, he's like, oh, thank God you're here. We're going to build this business together, but before you can manage the business, you need to get into the trenches. You need to be a soldier on the front line and know how that works before you can manage the troops, because military family, you know, that's good lingo. So, and he was like, and one of my truck drivers is sick in Corpus Christi, so I need you to fill in for him so you can learn how the operation works, and then we can come back and we can manage the business. Now, he didn't have the heart to tell his brother at that time, he's, look, I'm not here to help you build the business, I just came really to visit you. And he hadn't seen his brother in a long time, and it was his older brother, and he's a lot bigger than him, for those of you guys that have seen them, right? He didn't really argue. And so his first time in America, he literally lands and goes directly from the airport with his bags to Corpus Christi, Texas, to fill in for a sick driver to drive this ice cream van. Great when you hear the story from Isaac, because he's talking about how I nearly lost my mind because the music all day long. But I mean, what a culture shock. You're going from flying jets, doing intelligence work, to selling 50-cent ice creams to kids in Corpus Christi, Texas. And you don't even speak English. After a week, he's like, okay, I need to man up and tell my brother. He's like, all right, I helped my brother. I need to go back to Houston so I can spend another week with him before I have to go back to the military. So he ends up coming back to Houston, Texas. But what he didn't know was while he was gone, Moti called their parents in Israel. And their parents growing up, because they fought so much growing up, he said, look, if you guys decide to work together, we will give you everything. Moti called his father out on it and said, look, Isaac is here. He's finally here. We're working together. He's driving the trucks. And his father was like, okay. So they packed up their whole house and sold everything. They sold their house for almost 30% undervalue to sell it within a week. Sold their business, took all their excess cash and moved their whole family to Houston, Texas. So Isaac's getting back. He's like, brother, I have something to tell you. And Moti's like, I have good news. The family's on their way. And Isaac is crushed. He's like, no, but it was his family. There's no going back. Now, at this time, his family shows up. They have about $60,000. That's it. In the United States, a family of 10, $60,000, that's not much. So here they are in Houston, Texas, this huge family. And the ice cream it was great for a bachelor to live off of. But as far as a business for a family, there's no way. So they're trying to figure out, like, what are we going to do? So it was almost like this SOS. And so what they did was they did what a lot of people do in challenging situations, is they called their friends. And they made a phone call that usually you can only probably make one of these in your whole life, which is they called their friends in Israel and said, our family needs help, and we're asking you to come. And what was amazing is they got 20 of their friends from Israel to pay for their own flights and take some of 2 weeks to a month doctors, lawyers, pilots, a lot of people from their unit, because obviously in the military they had that bond, and come to Houston, Texas to drop everything to help their family. Amazing. And he said the way he made the call, it came through his voice, it was a begging and pleading, because we can't go back. So my family sold everything to come. We have to make something work. Now the question is okay, you're in the United States of America, you got a little bit of money, you're Middle Eastern, you have a language issue, you have no contacts. Are you guys getting me? It's like, what do you do? What happened was there was a group of Israelis that were selling some toys out of these carts in the mall in New York that they heard about. It was a new space in the late 90s, if you remember. In the middle of the aisle, there was really nothing in the middle of the aisle in the malls. There was maybe a little car raffle, maybe a pager shop. You guys remember the pagers, right? But that was really about it. There wasn't much in the middle of the aisle. So they were like, wow, there's this emerging space, this specialty retail space in the middle of the aisle. And so they heard about it. They were doing well. So they said, perfect, this is our opportunity because there's nothing here in the Houston area. So what they did was they got together and they pulled together their source of ideas with his family and their friends that came to help them launch this. And they said, we can do this. Now, the ultimate goal was to go into real estate, but obviously they didn't have enough money to do it. So the goal was to make a few $1 million as fast as possible so that way you could go into real estate, because that's the American dream. Here's where they're sitting. Now, the reason I'm going in depth in the story is because when you understand where we came from, it's amazing. So the story of it is they have these friends. So the idea is we're going to take this car. So they go to the leasing agent at the Houston Galleria, and they're like, hey, we're the Israelis from New York. We're going to open a kiosk. And she's like, what's a kiosk? Because they didn't exist really at that time. And, in the beginning, she was like, well, let me check on it. And no. But they went back persistent every day. No, this is what we're going to do. She said, fine, okay, you can do it. But you can't compete with anybody of my stores in the mall. Now, pause for a quick sec. Like, what's not already sold in the mall? They actually got an idea from some friends of a toy that was just coming to the market in China that they could bring. So they put basically all their life savings into buying a container of toys from China, not even knowing really if the leasing office would let them sell it in the carts in the mall. And they spend everything, and they get this container of toys, and they open up a couple locations with their friends. And many of you guys know what I'm talking about. If you guys remember when those helicopters where you used to pull, not the mechanical ones, the old ones where you'd pull the string, the little Zoom copters, and they'd fly around the mall, right? And they were like $10. They were the ones that brought those to the United States. Now here's what's crazy. They net profit $2.7 million in 4 months. Right? Okay? But that's not the most important part of the story. It wasn't the money that was made. The most important part of the story is how they did it. When their friends came over, their friends literally dropped everything to come help them. So it wasn't like, I'm your boss, you're my employee, go do this. So when their friends came to help them, although it wasn't like they were employees, it was like, I need to serve you. You're here to help my family. I owe you my life, really. So what they did was they served their community. They did everything for them. They cooked for them. They made sure their places were good. They did everything that they could to serve and support their friends that came to help them. So their friends felt there was ownership in the business. Now here's what was amazing. They're like, well, we can't pay them less than us. They came to save us. So they paid their friends more than they took, their family. So they gave them 2/3 of the profit. They gave them $1.7 million, and they kept $1 million for their family. You guys getting this? So they gave away most of the money. Now, what was amazing is that created this success story. So in January, all of a sudden, they felt ownership in the business. So all these Israelis that were looking for temporary jobs getting out of the military at this time are like, well, they're calling their friends. Now, they were like, we made our money, let's go into real estate. The problem was all these 140 Israelis showed up in January in Houston, Texas, being like, let's fly some helicopters. Because they heard the stories. And it just networked to their friends. And so they were like, I guess we got a business. It didn't happen on purpose. It was like we needed an idea. And that transformed their whole business model from that. So what happened is they started opening more locations. What they found, though, is that toys don't sell as well in January as they do in December. So they wanted to have a product that they could sell year-round and also something with higher margins. Being from Israel, they have the source of life for them, which is the Dead Sea. Now, if you were like me, I knew of the Dead Sea, but not much about the Dead Sea. When I started researching it, I was blown away. The millions of people that traveled to the Dead Sea, the 12 minerals that aren't found anywhere else in the world. I mean, there's a lot of famous people that have traveled to the Dead Sea, a lot of celebrities. How many of you guys know a guy named Jesus? Moses, all right, okay. Obviously, Cleopatra wrote it about it as the source of her youth and beauty, and everybody wants to know what was her secret. Like, what's the fountain of youth? This is where they found it, in the Dead Sea. So what they did is they started taking these products manufactured in Israel, because no Dead Sea products were sold in the United States. And so what they did was they started taking these products and selling them on their carts. And they started selling them in their carts, and they became very successful. Now what was interesting is it wasn't called SEACRET at that point. They hadn't created SEACRET. It was just Dead Sea minerals. And they started inventorying these products and purchasing these products from Israel. And then they started running out. They started with a couple kiosks, and then it grew, and then it grew, and then it grew, and then it grew. And by 2005, over a couple hundred kiosks, and they started expanding because some of the people that were working with them, they went to go travel, and one went to Australia. And they're like, hey, there's malls here. Can we open a cart here? And they're like, sure. So all of a sudden, they've got places going in Australia. Then they expand into Europe and Russia and South America. And they have this international business of these kiosks and carts where they're taking these amazing products derived from the oldest spa on earth that they've been taking and selling in their kiosks. You with me so far? Yeah. So now they collect all the information from all of the people working on their carts. Now they kept the same pay structure where they gave away 2/3 of the money. So the average person that was working on the carts making 30% commission, the average one was making nearly a 6-figure income. They were the largest employer, so to speak, of Israelis coming out of Israel all over the world working in secret carts. And so at this time, they've got this amazing business model of they're expanding in 2040. But what they decided to do is this, is they out purchasing their manufacturing, so they needed to create something that was theirs. So they took years and millions of dollars worth of sales, of comments, feedback from the people on the cart, the people that were selling, the people that were buying. What did you like? How does this feel? All this stuff. Because they had this amazing way to be able to demonstrate stuff. And they took a book and they actually took all of their profits. I mean, this was like an all-in move. If any of you guys have ever played poker, you know, this was like an all-in. It's either go home or you make it big. And they gave all of their profits, and they ended up giving it to a manufacturing plant in Israel and saying, basically, we need you to make this. Like, what do you mean? And they said, well, we want it to look like this, smell like this, feel like this, do this, and we need you to do it immediately. We need instant results on the spot. Now, in skincare, that had never been created. Something to create an instant on-the-spot result. And why? Because in order to be competitive in the mall, I really want you to think about this for a quick second, because nobody wakes up thinking to themselves, man, I can't wait to go get sold at a kiosk today. I don't know about you, I avoid them at all costs. I mean, I don't stop. I don't want to get bothered or pitched. They're like a nuisance on my way to Apple or wherever it is that you're going. Don't make eye contact. How many guys have ever pretended like you're talking on the phone? Honestly, right? Or how many guys have ever had to time it right? He's talking, go. We avoid them at all costs. Now, why did the helicopters work so well? Because it was something that you could demonstrate and see. If those helicopters were sitting on the kiosk just on a shelf, those helicopters, and saying, hey, we got these helicopters that fly, there's no way they would have had the same results. It was because it was something they could demonstrate and people could see and feel and touch and experience. So what they did was they wanted to create a product line, a skincare line that was highly demonstratable in the mall. Not because they thought it was a good idea, because it was necessary to compete. It was a survival for them. Because you got to remember, in the mall, you're not competing for the skincare dollar, you're competing for the shopping dollar. So if I've got $100, $200 to spend, and I go to the mall, why am I going to spend it on this high-end skincare line that I didn't even know when I woke up, because I've never heard about it before? I may or may not know anything about the Dead Sea, and I'm going to buy this instead of buying the iPad that I went to go buy. Are you guys understanding? Because most people have so much discretionary income that they're going to be spending on shopping or clothes or whatever it is. So when you're taking a look at it, in order for them to be competitive, they had to have something that produced an on-the-spot result, that satisfied this need we have as Americans and across this world as humans of having this instant gratification, because we want everything when? Yesterday. Fast food's not fast enough. Everybody wants everything right away. How can I, look, microwave, you can't even do it anymore. How many guys have put something in the microwave and you took it out, it was hot on the outside, cold on the inside, and you ate it anyway? Right? Like, it's 20 seconds. No, I can't wait. So the reason why it was a survival instinct for them to create something that was highly demonstratable, that created an on-the-spot result, which it hadn't been created in skincare before at this point. So when they took these to Israel and they made this, they produced an amazing line wherein SEACRET was developed.